So Philip, I'd like to get your perspective on something. We engage firms to conduct IT audits, and sometimes those audits are conducted in a way that they're almost like a mock FFIEC examination. And at other times, it's based on a set of questions that they've developed in a proprietary manner. And I'm wondering, how does that fit into the cybersecurity standards or frameworks that exist out there? And when we look at it from a board perspective, how should we engage an IT firm to really come in and audit what we do?
That's an excellent question. Too often, what happens with these mock FFIEC exams is it shows a focus on compliance rather than a focus on securing your bank. And your board should really get focused on, not that we want a good rating when we have an examination sometime later, but rather, have we secured our bank? That'll result in a good rating. Because you're then focused on the security. To address the question about how does that all fit in, too often these proprietary questions that are developed, they're a mixture of multiple standards and frameworks. And a common phrase you'll hear is that there's a mapping of our questions to NIST, to FFIEC CAT, to ISO standards, or something along that line. The problem that happens with mapping, though, is it's never neat. You can maybe have two different standards, and let's say one's blue and one's yellow, and you say, well, our new questions, they mapped the blue and the yellow. Well, the reality is we don't have blue and yellow anymore. We maybe have a little bit of blue, a little bit of yellow, but really what we end up having is green. We have something totally new, and we've lost some of the strategic and important elements of blue and yellow of the original standard. So really, I think what's helpful for any bank is to focus on what's going to be that industry-recognized standard that we're going to use, and let's have an audit that measures whether or not we're achieving that.
What I'm hearing from you is that we really need to anchor our practices and our perspective from the standpoint of an established standard like the FFIEC CAT tools or the NIST cybersecurity framework, and make sure that when we do establish practices internally at our bank, that they at least meet the baseline, and then depending on our inherent risks, we may want to increase the maturity levels of our practices that we have in place at our bank versus focusing on preparing ourselves for an FFIEC examination or an IT audit with proprietary questions.
It's important too when we think about where's our maturity level is we don't want to be baseline. Baseline is the floor. It's the absolute minimum. Regulation tends to be the lowest element. And do you really want to brag about, oh, I've met the absolute minimum? No, you want to go beyond that. And you want your board to know, hey, we're focused on something higher than that. But that is one of the nice things about the FFIEC CAT is it does have a maturity model on it, and it shows where you are and how you're progressing. And it also has an inherent risk profile at the very beginning, which helps kind of set the anchor of what all do we need to secure. So it has multiple elements some of the others don't have. But again, in today's environment, having a single standard that fits everything is just hard to exist. And that's the reason it's good to pick a standard that's going to be, hey, we're going to follow this one, and then you can add to it and supplement it with other standards or duplicate. Now that does sound like it's complex. Oh my gosh, how much can I put into security? And that's kind of a question your board has to have. And it's one, really it comes down to your reputation as well. How much do you want to protect it? But it is a balancing act between what's the cost of security versus what's the risk of not being secure. That's only something that you and your board can decide on.